What is the highest possible high score in Super Mario Maker 2? At first glance, this question might sound trivial. It's kind of obvious. It's 1 billion minus 1. That's how high the counter goes. Period. There is only a slight problem with this answer. As it turns out, reaching this number is close to impossible. It's just so high that reaching it within the tight 500 seconds timer just doesn't work out. So we actually already took a look at how high we were able to push this number in the first Mario Maker and got it to over 300 million in only 500 in-game seconds. But now that Super Mario Maker 2 is released and we got tons of new items to tinker around with, it is time to find out whether our old highest high score can actually be beaten. So you ready? Let's do this! Okay, so before we take a look at different designs that push the high score as high as possible, let's first discuss why maxing out the score is so unbelievably difficult. So the max score is basically 1 billion precious score points, and the timer runs for 500 seconds. So if we want to actually reach the perfect high score, then we'd have to collect about 2 million score points per in-game second. Eating a delicious power-up grants us 1000 points. So to get to the highest possible high score, we would have to eat 2000 mushrooms every in-game second, or exactly 1 million mushrooms in 500 seconds. That is not only pretty unhealthy for Luigi, but it is also completely impossible. So we won't get very far by just building an actual Mario level. However, there is one trick that really helps us to push the silly score number, namely rapid reloading. So rapid reloading is rapidly reloading the same room over and over again. Thanks to the way how pipes work in the game, we can just have an entrance and an exit pipe. And as long as we permanently push the down button, Luigi will permanently switch between the over and the underworld. Every time we do this, only about 6 frames pass before we leave the room again. So with this trick, we're able to load the exact same room 10 times per in-game second. That's the main trick we used to push the score up to over 300 million points in the original Super Mario Maker. We just built a setup where 8 Bowsers are defeated every time we load the room, and then we rapid reload this exact room about 10 times a second, which together with a couple of smaller optimization tricks led to our previous high score. So why did we only use 8 Bowsers? Why didn't we just plaster the whole screen with enemies that transform into helpful score points every time we reload? Well, that's because of the evil rule of 7. So when we defeat several enemies at once in any Mario game, then each one gives us more points. The first one is 200, then 400, 800, 1000, 2000, 4000, and finally 8000. If we now defeat another enemy, then we don't get any more helpful score points, but needless 1-ups instead. 1-ups don't grant us points. So after defeating a set of 7 enemies, we can't get any more points for defeating enemies anymore. 7 enemies in a row are 16,400 points per reload. But Bowsers are always worth 8000 points, and that's why we used 8 Bowsers. Alright, so that is our old setup, and this is the setup we're trying to beat today. There's only a slight problem. We can't build this setup anymore, since it only works because of a super weird glitch. So it is only possible to have up to 3 Bowsers in a single subworld at the same time in Mario Maker. The way we got 8 Bowsers at once was by making use of black hole glitch cloning. So for anyone not familiar, the black hole glitch is one of the craziest glitches in probably in video gaming history. It allows us to do hundreds of incredibly weird things. It really breaks the game. The black hole glitch just got rediscovered this week in Mario Maker 2 by Isay. There's a link on how he did it in the description, and I highly recommend to check it out. It's completely bonkers. Sadly, the setup for the glitch changed in a way that doesn't allow us to clone Bowsers anymore. And it's not entirely correct, it's kind of complicated. But for now, we're going to do all of this almost glitchless for 2 reasons. First, since we can't really clone Bowsers, the black hole glitch doesn't really help in the first place. And second, whenever I tried to build something using the black hole glitch, Nintendo noticed what I was doing and just straight up deleted my level out of the course world, which I found a bit intrusive, to be honest. Like, the course is offline. Could you please not delete my offline courses, Nintendo? Anyway, so we can't use 8 Bowsers anymore. Our best option is to use 3 Bowsers and 5 Boom Booms. Such a design would grant 44,000 points per reload and would lead to a total high score of about 220 million points. That's a whopping 100 million points less than we were already able to get in Mario Maker 1. So we definitely need to come up with new tricks. We don't know about any glitches to push the score, and most of Mario Maker 2's new items are completely useless for high score grinding. Basically, we're stuck with a contraption that doesn't even come close to what we were able to achieve in Mario Maker 1. Sadly, the highest high score in Super Mario Maker 2 is just way lower than it was in the original game. Is what I would say if it wasn't for one last trick that actually gives us a chance to get a good highest high score. There is one small but very significant change they made in Mario Maker 2. One small change that actually allows us to break the rule of 7. Because opposed to what most people believe, not each Powerball Ocean is the same Powerball Ocean. There are two different types of Powerball Oceans in Super Mario Maker 2. Relative Powerball Oceans and absolute Powerball Oceans. So, check this out. Here Luigi finds himself in the middle of a long empty corridor. To his left are two shells. One just lies on the floor and one lives in the middle of this shell shooting pew pew device. To Luigi's right is a muncher and a power block on global ground. And in the middle of this area is another muncher hidden at the top. Alright, so let's first activate the shell pew pew contraption and let's see what happens. The shell travels to the right, hits the power block and the muncher dies, as expected. Hooray! Next, let's throw the shell ourselves and let's find out what happens then. So the shell travels, the power block goes pow, and this time the muncher didn't die. So the reason why the muncher gets defeated once and once happily lived ever after is because if Luigi kicks the shell, then the Powerball Ocean is relative to his position. But if a POW gets triggered by a shell that isn't associated to a player action, then the Powerball Ocean is absolute at the position where the power block lives. A good way to visualize this is the following. Here we once again kick the shell ourselves, but this time we run to the muncher in the middle. As soon as the POW goes POW, the muncher above us dies, even though the power block is several screens away. This is because whenever the player is associated to a Powerball Ocean, the Powerball Ocean happens in the area of the current camera. But if a Powerball Ocean isn't associated to a player action, then exactly one screen in size around the power block gets affected. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is an incredibly interesting mechanic for high score grinding, because it is literally one screen that gets affected, meaning an area of 13 blocks to each side of the power block and 8 blocks up and down is affected if a power bloats absolute. So, if we trigger one power block at the far left side of the screen and another one at the far right side, then the power block to the left kills everything in this area, and the one to the right affects all enemies in this area. So if we place down two sets of 7 munchers, one here and one here, then both sets of munchers are only in reach of one of the two power blocks. If we now run the game, both sets of 7 get defeated and both of them grant us points. This gives us a glitchless way to circumvent the rule of 7. Hooray! What we're looking for now is the optimal way to entangle power blocks so that we're able to trigger the most amount of separate sets of 7 during each reload. So here we have two power blocks close to each other. One side is higher than the other one, but the other one is placed a bit more to the right. If we now draw in their absolute Powerball Ocean radius, then we can see that the upper power block is the only one that is able to reach this upper row, which is where we place our 7 munchers. The other power block is the only one that reaches the block to the right, which is where we put our second set of 7. If we now run the game, both do their thing and each muncher set gets defeated independently, which grants us a total of 33,000 points each time this gets loaded. So the cool thing about this setup is that we're able to copy it 4 times, once in each corner of the screen, which triggers a total of 8 sets of 7 munchers each time we leave the pipe. That's 132,000 points per reload. That is much more than our old Bowser grinder was able to produce. But there is still lots of room for optimization. So first we can swap out one set of munchers for 3 Bowsers and 4 Boom Booms, since those always grant 4,000 and 8,000 points when defeated, which pushes the per load score up significantly. Second, we can once again use the infinite checkpoint trick for additional 2,000 points per cycle. For those not familiar, if we place a checkpoint at the entrance of a pipe and another one at the exit, then the checkpoint is always activated when leaving the pipe, which allows us to build an infinite checkpoint setup, and more importantly, grants us 2,000 additional points per load. But there are actually still a couple of points that we can squeeze in per load if we feed to that a delicious gigantic mushroom and finish her outfit by putting a spiked helmet on top of her. then Toadette kills everything that she touches when leaving a pipe. So if we place 2 Goombas above the pipe, then those add 400 points per cycle. But we can actually put another 2 Goombas on tracks on top of those 2 for even more score. Finally, we can put boo rings at tons of different places around the exit pipe, so that Toadette kills one of the ring boos every time she leaves the pipe for another 3,200 points increase per cycle. So this setup now grinds over 150,000 points per load, or about 1.5 million points per in-game second. This design runs for over 6 hours, start to finish. It kills 49 munchers per load, which means it kills about 250,000 munchers in 500 in-game seconds. Alright, so let's grab a piece of tape and glue strip the joystick down, and let's wait for 6 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, the currently highest possible high score in Super Mario Maker 2 is 788,086,500 points. Hooray! We're actually getting really close to maxing out the high score. So how likely is this score to get beaten in the foreseeable future? Well, to be honest, I think it's highly likely that there's still room for improvement. The most obvious way to beat the score would be to find a setup that allows us to entangle more than 8 power blocks at once, which, at least on paper, might be possible, even though I wasn't able to get it to work because, well, to be honest, because when working with entangled power blocks, everything is a bit weird and everything is a bit broken. Anyway, so here we have it, the highest possible high score in Super Mario Maker 2. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you did, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and maybe you feel especially entangled today and want to hit the subscribe button as well. I hope that all of you have a wonderful day and see you soon. Goodbye!